And his beard is just long enough to cover up his junk in this picture.
Yeah.
Strategically placed. It seems like he's got like a G.I. Joe. Nothing too much going on.
He's a god. He can make that happen.
Right.
Almost got to be.
He's a grower, not a shower. He just came out of the cold water. Come on.
Welcome everyone to Vassals of Kingsgrave. Today is part 7 of our Silmarillion reread series. We will be finishing the Silmarillion proper today, the Quenta Silmarillion, which is chapters 22 to 24 in the books. And after this, we're aiming to have 2 more podcasts. The next one will just cover the Second Age and the Akalabeth, and then the last podcast will basically cover the entire Third Age and everything leading up to Lord of the Rings. My name is Greg, I'm claudiusthefool on the forums, and joining me today are 2 other vassals. We might be joined by another later, but we have Matthieu.
Hi everyone, Beren on the forums.
And Matt.
Hey everyone, Matt in real life, Varley on the forums.
So I'm just going to call Matthieu Beric, and Matt, you get to be Matt. So you're probably used to that, but it's alright.
Fair enough.
2 Matts is a bit too many.
I know. You've got that weird European spelling of the last 3 letters too, which I don't like. So.
Yeah. Well. That's us.
Change your name, man. Spell it right.
Yeah, Max Power. He's the guy whose name you love to touch. No, that's. I mean, I like my name. Lots of people. Lots of people have the name Matthieu, but not the name Maya anyway. So.
All right.
You have to know your name.
You've got to remember your name.
Oh yeah, that's Arya's. We should tell Arya that.
I was thinking of Theon, but go with
Yeah, that's
I was also thinking of Reek.
Yeah. Alright, let's just get down to it. Where we left off, basically, with the uplifting tale of Turin, and today we get to some more non-depressing stuff of the ends of hundreds of years and thousands of years of civilizations, and pretty much everybody important dies, except for a couple. But we will discuss it and analyze it.
Spoiler.
So the first chapter is chapter 22, which is of the Ruin of Doriath, and I'll do the summary for this one. After the death of Glaurung, Turin, and Nienor, Morgoth decides to parole Hurin, and he gives him his yellow ticket of leave. That is a Les Mis reference, if anyone gets that. Hurin returns to Dorloman, but is shunned by his people who believe him to be in league with Morgoth. Hurin then tries to return to Gondolin, where he spent some time in his youth, but he cannot gain entry to the hidden city. Turgon, the leader in Gondolin, shuts his heart to Turin, and the second Hurin leaves, he opens his heart to him, but too late. Hurin screams at the mountains, and Morgoth's spies learn much from Hurin's path, and now know roughly the location of Gondolin, although specifically they can't get there because the eagles are still guarding the passes in the skies. Hurin follows the reverse path of his son Turin. He travels to Brethil, and eventually finds the place of the stone marker of Turin and Nienor's grave. There he finds his wife Morwen near death. They have a brief reunion before she indeed dies. Hurin then travels to Nargothrond, where he finds Mim the petty dwarf has taken up residence. He slays Mim, reclaims the great jewel, the Naglamir, and then heads to Doriath. He throws the Naglamir at Thingol's feet as payment for Thingol's protecting Turin. Milian tells him that it's not cool, and Hurin calms down a little bit. He then realizes that Thingol loved Turin and tried to bring him back, but Turin wouldn't come. He apologizes to Thingol and represents him with the Naglamir. Hurin then leaves Doriath, thinking his fate fulfilled. He goes to the Western Sea and throws himself into the ocean. So we can discuss that junk. I mean, the big thing here is the Naglamir, which I always felt kind of cheated because he had never mentioned it to this point, unless I completely forgot. But this is the first we're hearing of this, like, epic, amazing thing, right?
Yeah, but that's because the dwarves are not really the focus of the book.
Yeah, but it's not we should have learned about it in Nargothrond if that's where it was, right?
I think we did, because it was given to Felagund from the dwarves as like a token of their esteem.
Yeah, but I felt like I didn't know about it until this chapter. Maybe it was just mentioned and then never gone back to before.
Yeah, because even in this chapter, there's like, no, it was given to King Felagund, and now he's dead, so now I'm taking it back for the dwarves.
I mean, what also surprised me is, like, when I watched the Hobbit movies, there seemed to be some kind of reference to them, like visually, like this when they talk about the gems and stuff like that the Elven King wants to get back somehow.
You mean that little bug-looking dude who's supposed to be an elf?
Yeah. Yeah.
That praying mantis?
Yeah, in the movies it seems like, is this the Naglamir or something? I don't know.
I gotta rewatch it. I haven't seen that in probably a decade.
You don't need to rewatch it. They're all shit.
No. It's the first one's okay. The
All
other
I
one's
remember is Tra-la-la-lally here down in the valley.
no, not that one. The Peter Jackson 9-hour epic. That's the.
Oh, okay. No,
Yeah.
they never mentioned the Naglamir in.
They don't mention it. They don't mention it, but it's like the same plot point. Essentially, it's like there's this.
Yeah, it's Arkenstone adjacent.
Yeah.
Arkenstone equals Silmaril.
Yeah, so I mean, Morgoth letting Turin go just to wander, hope Hurin that he'll lead him to Gondolin kind of pays off.
Yeah, Hurin goes into the wilderness again and doesn't find anything apparently.
Super bad for him though. Banging on the mountain, screaming, "Turgon, Turgon, remember the fen of Serek. Oh Turgon, will you not hear in your hidden halls?" It gets to me.
Yeah, Turin's a dick.
I don't think he's a dick. I think he just was misinformed because he does end up being like, "Oh, we should have let him in."
Yeah. Sorry, bro. Too late.
I was always wondering, if Morgoth has winged dragons and that sort of thing, how does he not discover Gondolin sooner when he already knows that they're in the region or something? It's
I'll get to that in chapter 24.
Okay.
He doesn't have winged dragons yet.
Yes.
Oh yeah, okay. Then that's cool.
But still, he's got to have wyverns or some fell beast that can fly. But it's the eagle. The eagles are protecting it, keeping a good watch on.
Yeah, there's some birds or something like that, probably, right? Like crows or something.
Crepane from Dunland.
Yeah.
Also, Olmo's helping him out still, right? He's still hiding that.
He's the only Valar that's giving two shits about the people left in Middle Earth at this point.
Yeah. Also, Thingol's a dick, apparently.
Yeah, but he's not a dick. He was a dick for the first 450 years, and Turin kind of made him like, "Oh, I can. That's right. You can find love here, and I'll watch after you." But here, Turin just throws up and throws the jewel at his feet. It's like, wait, hey, I tried to protect your son. I tried to get him back, and he wouldn't come. He just kept running away. I was like, no, you're fine. He just kept running away.
Right, and when you said here's for the protection of my son, it was air quotes protection. Yeah. He's all pissed off, and then he's like, oh, wait a minute, no, you did him a solid, and then kneels before him and says accept this.
See, I was more referring to what he does with the Silmaril and how he treats the dwarves essentially, he doesn't want to pay them.
Oh yeah, we're not there yet though. We'll get to that. But he's all right at this point. And plus, more Melian is the one who has to really explain to her. And no, it's all right. We were trying to help him.
Yeah, I mean, this is essentially what would happen if in Lord of the Rings, Lothlorien were to suddenly be overthrown. I mean, they if it was somehow to implode, that this is what happens.
Well, if Galadriel had taken the ring, basically, it would have just meant the downfall of them.
Something like that.
For all the jewels that the elves and the Noldor create, it seems that there's the constant motif of the really good jewels just lead to really bad shit happening. Except for the three rings, which are sacrosanct because they know no evil. But
just don't buy jewelry.
Don't love in the things in your hands.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to read the quote where he actually flings the Naglamir and he tells him about his fate. It's one of my favorite quotes from this chapter.
Do it.
"Receive thou thy fee," he cried, "for thy fair keeping of my children and my wife. For this is the Naglamir, whose name is known to many among elves and men. And I bring it to thee out of the darkness of Nargothrond, where Finrod thy kinsman left it behind him when he set forth with Beren, son of Barahir, to fulfill the errand of Thingol of Doriath." Yeah. So,
yeah.
Up yours, Thingol.
Yeah, it's a pretty backhanded thing to say to him. It's
But then when he comes down, he calms
laced
down.
with sarcasm.
Yeah, but after he comes down, he does kind of make it a little prettier, where he says, "Receive now, Lord, the necklace of the dwarves as a gift from one who has nothing, and as a memorial of Hurin of Doriath. For now my fate is fulfilled, and the purpose of Morgoth achieved. But I am his thrall no longer."
Which is pretty badass.
Mm-hmm. And now
then he throws himself into the sea.
Yeah, there's that other. It's not a motif, but the Western Sea is the closest that these mortals can get to the gods. So it's pretty symbolic of him deciding to throw himself into the Western Ocean and maybe hope against hope that Ulmo will take him there.
Do you think so?
I think it's not unintentional that it's all the West. There's that constant lure of the sea, with the elves, because that's where their ultimate home lies, over the sea. And he was from one of the houses of men who was partnered with the elves, and they probably held the Valar in high regard. So I thought it was symbolic that he threw himself Western Sea. He could have just jumped in the river, if he just wanted to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was more looking for like salvation.
Yeah, maybe some absolution or just some peace.
Yeah.
He's been tied in a chair for 40 years, seeing with someone else's eyes.
Yeah. You would want to, throw yourself into the sea as well, I guess, if you had been sitting on the same chair for 40 years.
We also get the line about Morwen, how she was not conquered, which was pretty bittersweet.
But she was pretty conquered. She basically gave up her life, right?
I think life beat the crap out of her, but she didn't die from it. I guess she kept going until she met Earendil again.
Yeah, I suppose.
At which point all the sad stuff gets to be too much, I guess.
Yeah. Well, she wasn't conquered by Morgoth or by the enemy. She was more conquered by the circumstances of what happened to her children and her husband.
Yeah.
Which is by way of Morgoth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the end, he still wins. So it's. Good for him.
Win for Morgoth.
Yeah.
Alright, so moving on. Thingol has the dwarves reforge the Naglamir with the Silmaril into the most beautiful and sought-after thing ever made by anyone anywhere. Thingol goes a little Gollum and won't let the Naglamir out of his sight at all. Eventually the dwarves reforge the jewel, but they refuse to give it to Thingol and basically murder him with it. Thingol dies, there is a battle between the elves and the dwarves, and a few dwarves survive to flee back east to their homes. Doriath is kind of falling to pieces. Million grieves for Thingol, but decides to abandon Doriath and return to Valinor. But before she leaves, she trusts the Naglamir/Silmaril to Mablung, chief of Doriath. The girdle of Melian is broken. Soon a great host of dwarves attacks Menegroth and try to reclaim the Naglamir. Mablung and many elves are slain. The dwarves loot and pillage Menegroth and return east with their plunder. They are stopped by Beren, who is chilling with Luthien in the east. The combined forces of Beren, the Green Elves, and the Ents utterly destroy the dwarven host. So, a lot of stuff happens here.
Yeah, I guess the
Ents show up.
The Ents are in play.
Which is like one line in the whole Silmarillion. It's like, wait, the Ents just came, killed a bunch of elves, and then fucked off again?
Yeah.
The dwarves.
The dwarves, yeah.
Dwarves, sorry.
But it's still at least they were more hasty back then, apparently.
Yeah, they still have their wives at this point, right?
Right.
Which is, I also always thought, this is the kind of thing that probably is at the heart of the antagonism between the dwarves and the elves in Lord of the Rings, apparently, because they're sort of like, we have bad history. It's all good to do with jewels. I sort of still feel it's just don't buy jewelry.
Make it yourself.
Yeah.
Make it yourself and keep it for yourself.
Yeah, but to me it's always really interesting to know apparently Doriath wasn't that impregnable actually anyway, because it's if the girl is broken, then basically anyone can just walk in and.
Right.
I
like that mad about how basically if in all of Tolkien's work every piece of jewelry was made by the person kept them, there would be no conflict whatsoever in the whole. The Silmarils would have been stolen, the Naglamir would have been stolen, the ring never would have passed anyone else, no one would have been corrupted. It would have just been a nice high fantasy romp.
Yeah, it's essentially keep an eye on your stuff. Don't lose anything. Someone else might get it, and big sadness.
And don't make any fucking oaths.
Oh yeah,
come back and bite you in the ass.
Yeah,
especially when you die 5 minutes after making your oath, and you condemn your sons to 500 years of awful oath keeping.
Yeah. Oh my. But yeah, this is the section where I go that Thingol, he's still a dick. He was a dick at the beginning.
Everybody, they were both sides were being. Yes, it's the dwarves made it originally for Felagund, and maybe it should have reverted back to them. But once he made it with the Silmaril, that's Elven, and I don't know who actually who's the rightful owner of the Nagla Silmaril at that point.
Yeah, it's like the goblins in Harry Potter.
They'll
make something.
Gryffindor, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Aren't the goblins like bankers in Harry Potter? I haven't read it.
Yeah, but they have made the sort of Gryffindor. It's goblin made in the Harry Potter books, and so we know when you ask the goblins if the sword belongs to the Gryffindor or to them, they would say that it belongs to them, whereas other people might say, well, it belongs to Gryffindor. So there's a disagreement of ownership. They need lawyers. They need more lawyers.
I don't think there's one attorney in all of Tolkien's work.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I try to remember. Is there anyone who is sort of a magistrate or something like that? There isn't really, is there?
No, it's like the rulers that pass the judgment.
Yeah, but they can't be dealing with all the petty. I mean, what if you have a problem with your landlord or something like that? That's not something that you bother the king with.
I suppose
delegate that shit.
Well, I mean, then you have like Eol like passing his own judgments within his own lands. So like, oh, you stumbled in here, I'm gonna marry the shit out of you.
You're mine now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact of Beren coming back into the story, and it seems like it all happens. It happens a lot in the Silmarillion where it seems very quiet and then just everything happens at once. So much happens in this chapter. It's not just the fall of Doriath. It's there's this epic battle between the dwarves are there. Then they have to go all the way back to the Blue Mountains. Then they get their forces. Then they go back to Doriath. They kill Thingol. There's a huge battle. Then they go back, and that's when Beren stops them because Beren is hanging out in Osirian with Luthien. And we kind of talked about this a little bit on the last one, or maybe it was in the recording that we didn't actually record. But at this point, they're both living as mortals, correct? Or as far as you know, I know.
Yeah,
they
in
both
the Greenland, like,
and they came back
the island. Like it's Toll something. It's like the land of the deadless. Or whatever, but they're both alive.
Land of the dead that live.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like the Silmarillion most of the time is like it's not going from 0 to 60. It's more like at 20, and then it goes up to 80 for a sentence or something, and then it goes back to 20. But that's because the nature of the narrative is a bit strange because it's not really a story in Lord of the Rings or something like that. So it's probably all condensed. So if you wanted to flesh it out and stuff, I guess it would probably be less jarring.
Yeah, and I really like Thingol's like last sentence right before he dies. Did you already read that, Greg?
Oh, you want to read it?
No, you do it because I'm on my phone and can't toggle between the doc.
This I wrote longest tombstone ever because that was what I wrote here.
I feel sorry for.
By what right is this one here? So basically, when the dwarves retake the Silmaril, and then he has this line right before they kill him.
How do ye, of uncouth race, dare to demand aught of me, Elu Thingol, Lord of Beleriand, whose life began by the waters of Quivienan, years uncounted ere the fathers of the stunted people awoke?
And then he dies. He gets stabbed. But, so the dwarves kill Thingol.
So died, in the deep places of Menegroth, Elwe Singolo, king of Doriath, who alone of all the children of Iluvatar was joined with one of the Ainur. And he who, alone of the forsaken elves, had seen the light of the trees of Valinor, with his last sight, gazed upon the Silmaril.
Awesome.
But yeah, it seems like at least he he died happily? Question mark. Thingol, do you think that's a happy ending, or is it,
I would say that you have a different definition of happy endings.
I mean,
Right.
if he looks at if the last thing he sees is the light of the two, of the
it's symbolic and it's beautiful, but it's not.
Yeah.
Right. It's not happy. It's because he is a
No,
dick
but
and was like, oh no, you don't get this.
It has great meaning, I guess is what we could say.
It's bittersweet.
Bittersweet, yeah. So I guess this is what we can look forward to with A Song of Ice and Fire, eh? Huh?
Yeah.
Something's. Oh God, who could? I'm trying to think of who that would. Probably like John dying as he watches some fire thing. I don't know.
No, I think it would be like Stannis dying and realizing his sword was not like a Lightbringer.
That would be something similar, I guess.
Yeah, but just the whole with Beren coming back and leading this host and.
Oh yeah, he comes right out of left
It seemed to come out of nowhere. It's like, oh yeah, this most epic badass human who ever lived is just hanging out with his wife. They've earned their peace, and now these dwarves are coming in. He has to attack them and.
Yeah, has to clear
Boom!
away.
Shepherds of the Forest.
Shepherds of the Forest show up.
Yeah. And never would they do anything else until the Third Age, apparently. So.
No, they're just hanging out in like Fangor and looking for the wives.
Yeah, I wonder what what they might have what they were thinking. Probably just like, oh man, these hasty people always doing stuff.
I also wonder how the hell any of the Ents survived the breaking of the First Age. Like, there's no way they could have walked out of Beleriand fast enough to get to, like, Eriador. You know, like,
But I mean,
the waters come in.
I mean, the forest.
What about the random elves just like living like on on the river, and then all of a sudden it changed courses and they're all drowned?
Well,
They gotta be like,
it kind
fuck.
of explains that a little bit, where like once the Valar came, well, we can talk when we actually get to the battle, but it wasn't the north of the world was like broken in the battle, but then there was like some time in between, like the actual destruction, and then like everybody leaving. I felt like there was a time to withdraw, but probably not that long.
Yeah,
I'm
but
sure a
you
lot
got
of
those
people
stupid like Floridian elves that are just like, oh, there's a hurricane coming. No, we'll just batten down. Like, no problem.
Yeah, to me, it's always interesting to know that. I mean, when you look at the Lord of the Rings, the description of Fangorn as it used to be that Treebeard gives is a bit, it's like a huge forest that stretched from basically, Isengard to the old
to the old forest
inside.
outside. Yeah.
So it's a big forest. So I guess I mean, if it covers a big enough landmass, then obviously not everything would have been. And I'm sure they lived in different parts of the world as well.
Yeah,
It's probably not. They didn't live in one specific area. It's at this time at least, I guess.
And also, Beren Luthien is repeatedly referred to as the most beautiful, person who ever lived ever. And then when they give her the Silmaril, they're like, and now she's the mostest beautiful who ever lived.
Oh yeah.
And then their son is going to be the mostest beautiful who ever lived once he gets it. It's like, they're pretty enough. We get it. She's beautiful.
Yeah, he wins all the beauty contests.
Right. Smoke show and a good singer.
So I mean, but imagine you give it to Luthien. Oh, that's even more beautiful.
Can't even look at her. She's so beautiful.
Yeah. So essentially, you get blind reading it. Apparently, then. Yeah. It just. But it's pretty random. Like Beren doesn't show up for. I mean, I don't know how many chapters, and suddenly he's in there. Oh, okay. I guess you were still around. Yeah.
Yeah. And just pointing out on the record how Matt and Brett last time made fun of me when I said Beren was still alive at this point. So I just want that on the actual podcast.
No, you could cut that out.
I could, but I won't.
Shit, cock, ass. Cut it out.
Yep, I cut that out. Snip, it's
Okay.
gone.
Oh, Shane joined us.
Damn it. Shane.
Hello.
Hey, Shane.
Hey.
What's up, man?
We were just talking about how hot Luth Beren. I'm talking about how hot Beren is. How hot
Luth
Luthien
Beren?
is.
Yeah.
I didn't see any pictures.
Well, she's just got the Silmaril and the Naglamir now, so she's like the most
Oh.
beautiful person who ever lived.
Right. Ever. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Like, imagine Giselle in that, like, ruby bra that costs, like, $29 million or whatever. That's basically it. Yeah, we're there already, Shane. Catch up.
Yeah, we're just discussing the Baron kicking the dwarves' asses as they stole back to the Blue Mountains.
Yeah.
Any comments to add on this point, Shane? We're probably talking about pretty much, Hurin leaving and finding his wife and going to Doriath and everything up to this point.
I mean, the dwarves in the Silmarillion are pretty consistently shown to be dicks as well, I guess.
Yeah, there's not one good dwarf, really.
No, not in the story. Which is
Telkar, right? Isn't Telkar supposed to be pretty cool? He just makes awesome stuff and never leaves.
Telkar was an elf, wasn't he?
No, he's a dwarf. Didn't we have this discussion like 4 episodes ago?
Probably.
So who was the king of the elves that they ganged up on? Thingol. That seems kind of
Who was married
strange to me.
Melian.
That seems strange to me. Like you just no, you can't have it, and they could just kill him. Like I don't know. There's a whole disparity about how badass like some people are compared to others. Men, elves, and then just some elves can take on like Balrogs, multiple, and some a handful of dwarves can knife them. And he was supposed to be pretty badass.
Well, Thingol was good at lasting long. He also was had his wife with him, but I mean, he wasn't expecting it. It was kind of came out of nowhere, where they were like, "Here, we're doing a job for you. And they're like, "No, we're keeping it, and we're going to kill you." So I guess it snuck up on him a little bit. And to be fair, they all got killed, or most of them got killed in retaliation. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Telkar was a dwarf of Nogrod, and he was one of the few that chose not to join with the elves, the dwarves of Belagost, I believe, that went back to attack Menegroth. So he's considered a good elf, right?
A good dwarf, you mean?
Good dwarf? You're confusing me.
Sorry. Got Hurin and Turin, elves and dwarves.
Dwarves, hobbits.
Man, those rum and cokes really hit you.
Yes.
Middle Earth biology is hard.
I know. It's 4 different races to keep track of. How do we do it?
Well, they all have 6 names.
Yes.
I just want to know like what Morgoth must be thinking. He must be thinking then. He must be like, oh my god, I don't even have to do anything. It's like this guy's just imploding all by himself.
Let's finish this first section.
All right, yeah.
This is the last third of the summary, where a lot of stuff happens. This is like 80 years of stuff boiled down to a couple paragraphs. But Beren and Luthien's son Dior, who I believe is technically human, takes up his role as the heir of Doriath and tries to rebuild the kingdom. He has some success, but shortly after he receives the Naglamir in a package from the east, and he knows then that his parents have truly died. He puts on the Naglamir and becomes the most shiny and chrome of anyone who ever lived of the three races of elves, men, and Maiar. Word eventually reaches the sons of Feanor that this was all going on. Of course, they decide to attack Menegroth and reclaim the Silmaril. Pretty much everybody is killed, including Celegorm, Curufin, Caranthir, and Dior. But Dior's daughter Elwing, considered half-elven, and a few followers manage to escape with the Naglamir and make their way to the mouths of Sirion and the temporary safety of the seas. So pretty much at this point, the only safe place left is Gondolin and the mouths of Sirion, which kind of everybody is gathering, I guess. That's where Gil-galad is leading, and Círdan, they're all hanging around.
Yeah, growing his beard.
Mustache, just a mustache at this point.
I must be the only one who felt that reading this kind of this kind of stuff boiled down into a couple of sentences. It feels like you don't really get the emotional response from Dio to the.
It just seemed like he showed up so fast and then left again. Like it makes me angry that he spent 40 pages describing the fake sun and moon, but this he decides to rush through and this.
Yeah.
He could have described all these battles and I'm sure there was treating between the elves. Give us a Silmaril. No, you can't have it. All right, we're taking it. And then it's just like bam. And then over the course of one sentence, all these 6 major people die, and then
it's
they're
like,
just done.
And there was much rejoicing, or there was much sadness, or something. Oh. But it's like you don't get the emotional reaction really from Dio to the death of his parents. Like it's like most people in this book are like, oh, my parents or my sister have died. I guess I should go there now.
It definitely feels rushed here at the end. I mean, I can only imagine this is some of the stuff that he hadn't finished working on, or he would, if he had his way, he would have liked to expand upon.
Oh, I agree. But at the same time, we lose a few sons of Feanor, so that's good.
Yeah.
We also lose Dior, and the fashion industry was much sadder for it, I guess.
And was Dior human? I don't think so.
Dior is a
well,
something.
He has to be. Well, see,
this
there's a whole article about who's considered, because basically if you're half-elven, I guess you make the choice to be either elven or human. But it seems like
But that doesn't come around till Earendil.
Right. So at this point, technically, Beren and Luthien were human when they had Dior, so he would be human. Elwing is only considered half-elven because Dior married an elf, Nimloth. That's why she's considered half-elven, right?
No, but Dior was considered Thingol's heir through
because
Luthien.
Because he was his grandson.
It seems like they're a third option.
The half-elven.
Well, there you go, I guess.
So I think it's opposite of being Jewish, where you have to be, your mom's Jewish, then you're Jewish. Like if your dad's human, then you're human.
Maybe.
Nothing.
Yeah, he's an half elf, but he's also part Maya because Luthien is the daughter of an elf and a Maya, so he has all the genes, I guess.
It also seems like there's much less of a difference between elves and men at this time than there is in the Third Age. Because in the Third Age, no man could stand against an elf in a fight. But here, some of their men are whipping ass on elves left and right.
Yeah, well, the men are in the heyday, and also the elves are I guess they're at their peak. They've been here for 500 years. They haven't had thousands and thousands of years in Middle Earth to fade and to diminish. And that's a big thing that happens later on. But yes, they were alive for thousands of years in Valinor. But that, I guess, the whole living or aging thing didn't really kick in until they leave the Undying Lands.
Yeah. Yes, because if you're in the Undying Lands, it's probably you'll probably stay young forever, right? Or you age to a certain point, and then at that
cue the Rod Stewart music.
I think the Undying Lands are the Undying Lands, right? You don't age.
Right.
Yeah, it's like Eden, if it was a obtainable, I guess.
I also feel bad because we get the name of the twins, Reread and Ellerin, who are Dior's other two sons, and they just fuck off and run away during the battle and are never heard from again. So
Yep.
I feel like they're hanging out with Tyrek, somewhere outside of King's Landing, with all the other people that got lost in the midst of all these fights.
Yeah, there's several characters like that they're like, oh, they went over here and they were never heard again.
Probably just looking on, and probably they just want to grab a sandwich and just observe what's happening. That's probably the only thing that most of these characters get to do. They get to show up to be named, and then they just go off again, never to be heard from.
It's also like I drew a little family tree here that try to connect like the two houses with Tuor and Huor on one side and Beren and Luthien on the other, and it's basically 6 generations from Thingol to Arwen over the course of the entire of like First Age to Third Age. It's only 6 generations of elves.
You realize those family trees are all in the appendices.
I know, but I feel like it sticks with me more if I draw it out myself.
Okay. All right.
I did that with the Targaryens on the Greencast, and I can still name like Targaryen kings where
in case there's going to be a test.
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah, just
I
in
hope
case.
there's going to be a test. Yeah, you realize they're having. I mean, it's all that time goes by, but it's still just 6 generations.
Yeah, I mean they just age slowly, if at all, and yeah. Usually elves don't die unless they are killed, so it's not much reason. I mean they don't. I mean they're not like dwarves. Dwarves have a lifespan of like 250 years max. So it's
the first of them, I think they were saying like more like 500, like the first Durins.
Yeah.
But
But
regular
third age
dwarves
rolls
sounds
around.
about right.
Yeah, by the time the Third Age rolls around, like dwarves' lives have become shorter. I always feel it's like evolution going through the prehistoric times, like when animals used to be bigger, and now by today's standards they are pretty small. When you look at bears, for instance, like bears it's that kind of thing, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like there's a sort of this feeling that as things progress, there's everything becomes smaller, or lifespans get shorter, and that sort of thing. It's like I don't know why that is. Is that sort of the idea of a decline or something? Is that what we're supposed to take from that? I mean, overall, I mean.
Yeah, me
We're
neither.
thinking about though.
Well, dragons get wings.
Oh yeah,
Not yet. It's coming. Not
Yeah.
yet.
I'm just saying they evolve better.
Slow your roll, Shane.
Was that evolution, or was that like Morgoth going, "Oh yeah, I should give these giant crawling, fire-breathing worms wings, and then they'll be dragons"?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like if he gives them wings, he should probably give them legs too. It's like some of them have to crawl on the ground, and that would look pretty ridiculous. It's like a flying worm.
Speaking of winged dragons, we get that in the next chapter.
Ah, yeah.
So moving on to chapter 23 of Tuor and the Fall of Gondolin.
Ah,
So,
yeah. The only
this one, Bear?
the only one that gets referenced in The Hobbit as well. So yeah.
Yes, we'll do this, and looks like it's 3 pretty much.
Yeah, it's also 3 paragraphs. So we're just going to do the first one and then the second one after. So Tuor, son of Rian, and the dead Huor, who is brother to Hurin, is brought up by the elves, but as they try to get to the Syrian havens, they are ambushed by orcs and Easterlings, and Turin is made a slave for 3 years till he manages to escape. Ulmo has chosen Tuor for his purposes, and he and the latter feels the need to leave his home, and he goes to Nevrast, where Turgon's people used to live before they went to Gondolin. 7 swans in the sky are shown to him as a sign that Turgon follows to Vinyama, where Ulmo had told Turgon to leave his sword and his armor. So Tuor gets those, which is like the only D&D element of the story. So Ulmo meets Tuor and tells him to go to Gondolin, and even gives him an invisibility cloak, sort of. And Voronwe leads Tuor to Gondolin. They even see Turin Turamba from afar, even though he's not named, because he's just met. I mean, he's a grim stranger. They don't speak to him. They reach Gondolin, are taken captive, but Turgon's armor and sword allow them to earn them. It earns them an audience with Turgon himself. Maeglin speaks against Tuor, and Turgon rejects Ulmo's plea. Gondolin is completely cut off from the outside world at this point, and the people are forbidden to go beyond the borders, no matter what their purpose is. And Turgon does not care about the fall of Nargothrond or Doriath, which, dick move. Yeah, so that's the first part.
Of all the dick moves, I feel that's one of the lesser ones that we were reading about in these group of stories.
Yeah, I mean, he could still care. He could still care. It's like he doesn't even bother. It's like he says, well, it's not me.
It did bother me, but also just because like they know that this time was going to come at some point. Like they all know the doom is drawing near, and that was a sign of it, of Ulmo sending his emissary to let him know, like, okay, this is what we prepared for. You know the rules. Now it's time to withdraw. But I can also understand Turgon not wanting to do that because he built this amazing, beautiful city hidden, and it's the jewel of the Noldor at this point, and it's the last real city in the world. So he doesn't want it to go away.
No, but I mean, he could. I mean, and that's all still true. It's just say he seemingly doesn't care about the people who died in Doriath and Nargothrond that much. I mean, it doesn't really bother him too much, I guess is what I'm saying. That's the only point of contention. He could still feel empathy for them or something, but apparently he doesn't really, as long as it doesn't affect him personally, doesn't really care. And
right, because he already built his was it Tyrion, a resemblance of that great city in Valinor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he just loves it so much that he doesn't want to face facts and be like, oh, we gotta peace out.
It's kind of crazy that he knows from the gods that you should leave.
Yeah.
They just be talking to him. It's like in any other circumstance, people would say he's crazy, but in this case, no. But what I find interesting is that we got a couple of chapters back. We saw that Ulmo sort of talked to Turgon and told him to leave the armor and that sort of thing. It's like now some of these things come back. They're not. I mean, granted, this doesn't amount to much other than allowing Tuor to get an audience and to explain himself, but still. It's still relevant in the sense that the Valar, at least Ulmo in this case, have an impact on the story.
Yeah, well, we're told that Ulmo is the one that never really gave up on them and still tried to help them as much as he could, and you can't get much more overt help from the gods than the god actually coming up out of the sea, telling you where to go, passing on your message, and then not listening to it.
Which is a great picture by Ted Nasmith of Ulmo meeting Tuor.
Yeah, he has a winged helmet.
Everest, yeah.
He's got to be thinking, what the hell do I have to do to get through to these people? To get them to do what they need to do. These elves, they don't listen.
They think they're going to live forever.
Not here, they're not.
Yeah, no one wants to live forever. Queen song reference there. But no, it feels like to me at least that Tuor has a pretty shitty life as he grows up because he's made a slave for 3 years, which you would think that this would be somehow somehow have an impact on his life later on. In a sense, it's like it does with Dany, but it doesn't. And yeah, his parents. I mean, I guess his parents die at some point as well. So it's but yeah, it's really interesting that he's not like Turin in a sense that doesn't let the bad experiences sour him that much. And it's interesting that that he sort of meets Turin on the way, but it's like a cross reference, so it's like it references another chapter that happened earlier, but so this takes place much earlier chronologically than it is being told to us in the story.
Right, he sees the guy like running in a different direction with a black sword that we know now is Turin. Yeah.
And this,
That's
remember
good.
how last episode you guys made fun of me because I was like, didn't he have a flaming sword? Like in this picture, it looks like he's got the sword's like glowing blue. That's why I based that from. So blame Ted Naismith again for inaccurate illustrations.
But yeah,
I will
keeping.
not blame him for making fun of you, though.
No, that's fine. I'm used to it.
So then we get Myglin back. I mean, Myglin comes back because last time we saw him was when his father got, crushed on the rocks.
And he's a much more happier kid now, and he's on board with everybody and doing his part, and he's still just as emo and depressing and in love with Idril, but she loved him not.
Yeah, he's obviously. I mean, he's on everyone's side except for Tuor, which is it's also like I guess it's because he's racist against men. Is that it, or is it?
Well, no. Don't they say that like his love for Idril is unnatural, considering like they're so
cousins, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably there's probably a law against it.
Turin married his sister, so I don't know what
first cousins. I mean, come on, they're royalty, right?
Yeah.
It's like nothing for a while.
This is just this is like incest 101 for Targaryens, so it's not
It's nothing.
Yeah, they're like, well, that's
they're
way too far away. You're not banging your sister, then.
All right. Speaking of Turin and Idril, let's get to the second part of the summary.
Pressing forward.
I'm trying.
Okay. So
I think we're doing good so far.
So Tuor and Idril fall in love, and Turgon allows them to marry 7 years later. Myglin's hatred and jealousy grow. He disobeys Turgon and goes beyond the borders of Turgon's land. Húrin had mentioned Turgon's name once he was freed, so now Morgoth is searching for Gondolin in the region, and his men find Myglin, and Morgoth promises him kingship of Gondolin and Idril after Myglin reveals the location of Gondolin to him under threat of torment. So Morgoth attacks Gondolin during a festival, as he does, when the elves were welcoming the rising of the sun, so maybe the sun worshippers. Dragons, balrogs, orcs, etc. can't climb the walls, so machines are used to get inside, which might be an inspiration for the Siege of Gondor, who knows. Myglin counsels Turgon against flight, and so the battle begins. The Tower of Turgon falls, and so does Turgon. And obviously Gothmog is slain, the Lord of the Balrogs, in his fight with Exelion of the Tower. Myglin tries to kidnap Idril and Earendil, but Tuor throws him off the ramparts to his death, as Myglin's father had predicted. Tuor and Idril flee through a secret passageway that she had prepared earlier in secret and through the mountains. But there they are ambushed by a Balrog with orcs, but Glorfindel, that Glorfindel, slays the Balrog and dies as well. But he comes back, you guys, so, read Lord of the Rings. The remnants of Gondolin reach the Sirion, where they meet the survivors of Doriath, including Elwing, and Gil-galad is named High King of the Noldor at this point. So yeah, a lot of stuff happens here in this paragraph, so it's full.
So Myglin, I like how he just folds like a cheap chair. Like Morgoth is like, I might torture. He's like, okay, here it is. I'll do it.
Yeah. Well, he's sort of like probably trying. I mean, he has some kind of resentment against Tuor anyway. So it's like it makes it easier, I guess, to betray Gondolin in that sense, because he knows, oh yeah, I get to kick that guy in the nards or something. And so
now Myglin, this is that dark elf son from like way back when.
Yeah.
Eel.
Okay.
He also, yeah.
And before he died, he said, may you meet my same fate, and he's basically thrown off the same cliff that his father was.
I didn't pick up on that during the reading.
And as he falls, he sort of crushes 3 times on the rocks, right? It's not really a good death. It's yeah.
He probably didn't feel nothing after the first one.
Hopefully, but still, like it's also really, really interesting that apparently Morgoth wanted to keep the city intact for him to delegate it to kingship to Myglin or something.
I don't think he did. At all. That's just
to me that's probably a lie. But it's like, if we take it at face value, then that means that the city might have survived, and I guess.
Yeah, I
But-
always took that as him more just like promising Maeglin something, because I never picture Morgoth as like his forces occupying somewhere, after they take over.
Right.
And a peaceful
Oh.
transition to a new lord. It's more like, I'm gonna fuck this shit up because you guys made something beautiful and I don't like it. So
Yeah, it's not to my taste. I'm going to redecorate. And obviously, lots of visual. I mean, when you look at art of the Fall of Gondolin, it's very visual. It's visually very reminiscent of
Siege of
images
Gondor.
of Siege of Gondor. Because
We even have the tower. The Tower of Ecthelion is in Gondor, which is named after a different Ecthelion, but still, he's there's a lot of echoes between the White City on the hill, that this is, and that Gondolin was also.
But Glorfindel gets to come back, and Ecthelion doesn't. So,
which is never really explained in the text. It's just, and I never realized that the Glorfindel that Frodo and company meet in on the way to
Rivendell.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the name of that they meet on the way to Rivendell.
Yep.
Is the same Glorfindel, because he
It's the same
recycles
one.
names all the time. No, I know it is now, but we're never really explained how he came back. I mean, I guess
No.
he was just too, like you said, too much of a boss for the
Yeah.
halls of
I don't think we're ever explained.
commandos.
I mean, apparently he has
I don't
sort
think
of
we're
like
ever given that explanation.
Like, we know how Gandalf comes back when he dies fighting the Balrog, and he's kind of like respawns into a new body and is sent back.
Yeah, but he's like
was
a Maya.
Right, I
So-
know, but
purging himself of all sins. Apparently, is like if you slay a Balrog, if you slay a demon or something like that, you might be able to do that. But it's also still up to the Valar to grant you the possibility to go back, right?
Yeah, but there's a handful of elves that do some that are equal to Glorfindel as far as the boss death, like in a fight with the Balrog or even Morgoth. And
Yeah, but I guess
for
his
some
is
reason-
sacrificial in a sense because Ecthelion may kill Gothmog, but still it's like fighting for Gondolin, something that they shouldn't have been fighting for in the first place.
Nah, I don't like that.
I mean, to me, it's like I have this theory that essentially they only get to come back when they slay a Balrog because we don't have any other instances of that happening. It's like apparently if you kill a Balrog, then you get a second life or something.
it's like getting the 3 gold rings on Star Fox. Oh, get another one.
Oh yeah.
But also we get the line that Maeglin's treachery is considered the most infamous of all the histories of the Elder Days, which is pretty.
Yeah.
That's quite a statement, considering
Right.
everything else that went on, and
Especially
because
since Idril had made her own tunnel out another way.
well, she's got the sight. They all had the sight that something was.
Yeah, they all know what's they all know that the plot is impending. The plot's arrival is impending on them. It's just that the to me Maeglin doesn't really have a reason to betray anyone except for not being harmed like physically or something. But if he weren't a coward, then that wouldn't be.
Right.
I mean, it's understandable why he would not want to get hurt or anything.
He just got caught. Like he dug a tunnel in the wrong area. Like Idril apparently had in the works an escape route that anyone that was working on there could have gotten attacked by orcs too. So.
Sure, but I'm just saying that if he had any sort of integrity, he wouldn't have betrayed anyone. I mean, it's just like he doesn't really have a reason because he's been treated well and that sort of thing. It's like, he doesn't. There's no real slight for him to sort of get back.
But it is because he had the classic his father was kind of a dick to him growing up, and then when he got to Gondolin, he found a new father in Turgon, and he would have assumed that he would be good enough for his daughter. And I don't even know if they weren't cousins, would he even let him? So he had that sort of I'm not good enough. That was more the driving force of his betrayal, I think. And he's just he didn't want to be hurt.
The perceived betrayal of
and he also
Idril.
I think he also convinces other people within Gondolin. I think he has sort of also one supporter, whose name I'm forgetting. I think that it's mentioned in the Unfinished Tales or something in the expanded commentaries and stuff. Because apparently there's some people actually discover what's up when he makes it clear that he's with the invading forces apparently. So it's I assume that there's it's just that there's inherently a problem with this sort of narrative when you have that distance from the events, like when you're not in the scenes
Yeah.
as they happen. It's like, it's very difficult to sort of know what the rationale is for why a character A does B, because most of the time the text doesn't explain it in detail to us.
Well,
Well,
also
no,
got the line
because it's
here-
like a history that this is just what happened. Like, of course, we're going to have to take it at face value that, like, he was, put under threat of torture, like, he was promised all these things, and he was like, oh, this sounds good. Like, I don't think we need to have, like, the one-on-one with him or Morgoth or anything. In fact, like we said before,
that would be pretty interesting, I guess.
I mean, it would be, and in an expanded story like The Children of Huron, like, it's more vetted out, but in the Silmarillion on how they actually are, or how it's written, like, we don't get that. We just have to take it at face value.
Yeah.
And that's it.
No, I understand. It's just that, the nature of the text itself makes it more difficult.
I guess it's not technically a betrayal the way Meglin's is, but what the Sons of Fëanor do in the end of the last chapter or section seems much more douchey than what Meglin is.
I mean, then
anytime there's kinslaying, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, but still, this is probably because this is the very last bastion of hope for the elves, essentially. And yeah, he just does it for selfish reasons. And it's not like Fëanor's sons are douches all around, but it's still, at this point we know that already, and they have it's not unexpected of them to do that, whereas with Maglin, he was always, well treated and well, received, and he obviously had a huge influence on Turgon's actions as well, because it's like he counsels him to not flee Gondolin, and so Turgon listens to him, and even, I mean, that's a pretty big an important place for Maglin. I just feel like he doesn't, other than selfishness, he doesn't really have a reason. I mean, the Sons of Fëanor at least can say this was rightfully ours, and
they have the oath to fall back on always, which is always their excuse. But we also get here the we always complain that there's not enough extrapolation and explanation of the cool stuff, and I think he's kind of making fun of us when he's like, much is told in the fall of Gondolin, the battle of Ecthelion and the fountain of the battle of Ecthelion and the fountain with Gothmog Lord of Barrow. He's like, I would like to have that, but it's just a book we don't have.
Yeah, that's probably,
and hopefully they'll make that like the Children of Huron and draw it out.
There's a lot of those, even Beren and Luthien we talked about before, how it'd be nice to have a nice, expanded. Except the new Tolkien book coming out is some other weird tale that he wrote back in the 1920s, Kullervo, which I've no idea what that's about.
Oh, that's like a Finnish, like a Finnish tale or something.
Of course it is. All right, let's get to the big ending for this section here.
So Morgoth now thinks that his victory is absolute, seeing as the remaining elves are no threat to him whatsoever, and Ulmo begs the Valar on behalf of the elves to intervene and to forgive them, but only one who could speak for elves and men simultaneously could sway Manwë. As Tuor grows old, he feels drawn to the sea and sails with Earendil into the west, and no one ever heard from them again. But Tuor was given special status and counted as one of the Noldor and no longer a mortal man. So
he gets the Gimli treatment. To hang out in the Valinor and not die. Mm-hmm. Kind of the opposite of what Beren and Luthien, where they got to both be mortal and go back.
Yeah, to me, it's also like reminiscent of Legolas, because Legolas has this sort of, at least in Return of the King, he has sort of this. He always talks about the sea, the core of the sea, and
to the sea, to the sea. And he sings.
So there's nothing inherent in the quote-unquote geography of the land or the island that is harmful to anything other than elves. It's just if humans go there, they'll get killed. They can't go there.
It seems like they just won't, like, through the shadowy isles and the the twilight, that, like, just the magic won't even let them get there.
Right, the Enchanted Isles like turns their boats away.
Yeah,
it's also interesting to note that it's actually most of what's happening at this stage is not even through major all-out war or something like that. It's just like the elves are practically like shooting arrows at each other, sort of, and playing into Morgoth's clans. Or basically helping him win without him having to break a sweat. He just sits back and looks at what's happening and just goes, "Oh yeah, that was in my favor." Because if we look at the chapter as a whole, he doesn't really do anything much. He just
he uses the information to his advantage, and then he strikes.
Sure, but I'm just saying that. He doesn't really actively do much beyond sending his army there. Other than that, it's pretty much the elves undermining themselves. So it's not like he had to elaborate some complex scheme or something like that, or to bring Gondolin down. It's just like it happened naturally because if for example Turgon forbids his people to go beyond the borders, then eventually at some point someone's going to challenge that restriction. It's like
Maeglin did just indirectly.
Yeah, because if you're shutting yourself off from the outside world, then essentially someone will obviously want to know what's beyond the border. Yeah, to me it's just like Morgoth here at least has complete victory, and
he thinks he has complete victory.
He thinks he has.
Yeah.
But we also get the mention that Gil-galad is now technically High King of the Noldor, and he is Turgon's nephew through his brother Fingon.
Yeah.
And I guess he's been hanging out at in the Havens with Círdan, or did he?
Yeah.
Did he flee?
Yeah.
He must have been in Nargothrond at some point.
No,
right?
I think he was in Nevras for a little bit, and then left for the Mouths of the Syrian.
He plays a pretty big part, in the Second and Third Ages. He was part of the Last Alliance at the end of the Second Age.
Gets burned alive by Sauron. Spoiler.
He's got a pretty badass spear too. Yeah.
Yes.
It has a name too. It's got I forgot what it's called.
It means ice, I think, doesn't it?
Anglor? No, I don't think so.
We can look it up. So basically, everything's leading towards the sea, towards the Bay of Valar. That's where aside from the Green Elves in the east, that's where all the elves are. Everybody of note, at least. And it's all coming to a head. And I don't think we ever mentioned that Earendil was born in Gondolin, who is pretty big in the next chapter.
That's what that's what we felt to talk about, because Maeglin tries to kidnap
that's right.
Earendil and Idril. And that's when Tuor basically throws them off the cliff.
So once they get to the bay, that's where Earendil meets his future wife Elwing, who is from the other side of the elves with Beren, Luthien, and all those. So everyone's hanging out in the Havens, and they're basically waiting for the end of the world at this point.
As you do.
Yeah. And now we get it in chapter 24.
Then we have also the discussion of the Valar, which the Valar didn't show up for a long time except for Ulmo. So it's very interesting that Manwë sort of feels that he has to. The whole world. The children of Ilúvatar have to sort of beg him before he decides to. It's also a question of whether or not they are allowed by fate to intervene at this stage, or if they still have to wait for a little. It's not entirely clear.
I stopped worrying about fate-wise stuff because it's all, no matter what happens, it's all in the
fate.
It's all in the music, Yeah. So there really is. It's either is or it isn't, but it doesn't matter because this stuff's going to happen anyway. But I kind of felt bad that Tuor kind of sailed off and never came back, but at least he got special dispensation and got to hang out there. But it's understand rules is rules, and also it seems like so much time has gone by since they left, but it's only been 500 years, which is a lot in our time. But for elves, it's not that long. This is 500 years. There's what 6,500 years of history coming up next. So it seems like it hasn't been that bad. So it's almost like the Valar be like, hey, you guys just left. What do you want?
Yeah, for the Valar, it's probably like, oh yeah, last week you guys were still like, oh. Fuck you,
We've had 6,500 festivals since you've left. I don't know what you're...
Yeah. That's also something like Morgoth always attacks the festivals. He doesn't. People don't remember that. They should probably double security,
especially if you're the last city on Earth. Yes.
Yeah.
I did it was kind of bittersweet or beautiful how, they were worshipping the rising of the sun, and then they saw the sun rise in the north. Oh, shit, that's not what usually happens. Looks like we're under attack. Let's get to the good stuff. Chapter 24. Matt, you want to start us off?
Don't mind if I do. Earendil marries Elwing, and they have two sons, Elrond and Elros. Yep, that Elrond.
Name drop.
Yep. They're both called the Half-elven, even though they're like part Mire, part man, part elf, depending on what you consider Dior or... Ugh. Man, I could use a comma in here too.
DROR. I hear
that out.
Brett's like, vindicated twice already.
Anyway, they're almost mostly man. So Earendil is Lord of the people of Sauron after the fall of Gondolin. And with Kiergad, the shipwright, they help make Vingala, and he goes to find his parents. But all the enchantments around Valinor deny him. So while he's sailing around, his wife Elwing is chilling on the shores in possession of the Silmaril. Everything was cool, and then the sons of Fëanor were pricks. And they come in force and attack Syrian in the third elf-on-elf kingslaying. The good thing is that in the battle we lose another 2 Fëanor sons, and that leaves us with Maedhros and Maglor, who, like pricks, kidnap Elrond and Elros. But in turn events, they're not complete assholes to them and actually treat them well. However, this story comes to Elwing, and she loses her shit and casts herself into the sea, like you do. But she's wearing the Silmaril. So Ulmo comes up and gives her the form of a bird, and she flies towards Earendil. And with the Silmaril on her breast, Earendil knows it's her. So they're like, damn it, shit sucks. We need to go to the Valar. We need the Valar to come and set things to rights. So with the Silmaril on his brow, Earendil sails through the enchantments and enters into Valamar. For some reason, they say he's the first mortal man to reach the shores. Again, he has his parentage is filthy with elves. Anyway, he tells his 3 co-sailors to stay put because he doesn't know what will happen when he leaves. But Elwing says she'll deal with whatever happens, and they both get off the boat. But Earendil says that he alone will plead with the Valar. He meets a bro who totally is psyched to see him, and it's a herald of Manwë. Eonwë to Earendil. Hail Earendil, of mariners most renowned, the looked for that cometh at unawares, the longed for that cometh beyond hope. Hail Earendil, bearer of the light of the sun and the moon, splendor of the children of the earth, star in the darkness, jewel in the sunset, radiant in the morning. So
He makes quite an entrance.
yeah.
You understand why they named the star after him?
Well, he became a star.
Yeah, he became the star, obviously.
Which I'm still not convinced that's a very good fate, but I guess we can get there.
He gets to fly. He's an astronaut, Shane. He's literally exploring the heavens in his spaceship, which was a boat. What's there not to like?
Which we've already pretty much been told there's nothing but nasty shit out there.
The Void? You want to
It's the
explore the
Void.
Void?
With a bunch of ungolots and all kinds of nastiness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably
So
some
we
chaos
get the epic return. We're just going to call him Mortal because it works for us, even though, like you said, I believe your term was filthy with elves in his ancestry.
Yeah.
I did always kind of feel bad for the 3 guys that had to stay in the boat.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give a shout out to Falithar, Elrond, and Arendir, who I believe they just ship back on a wind to and make him wash ashore in Middle Earth at some point. You guys get out of here. You don't count.
Well, you think they wanted to get off the boat?
Well, they probably signed up for a fishing trip and ended up going to Valinor, so they've got a good story to tell. But
I think they'd be scared shitless.
Yeah.
I'm getting off the boat.
We're gonna need a bigger boat.
There's jewels. The beach is just made of jewels. It's like Tim Curry in Congo when he's finding diamonds on the shore. Except there's no crazy monkeys to kill them.
The deep cut.
Yeah.
And doing good.
It's the lost city of Zange.
And all the jewels are still from the first time the elves arrived there. When they threw away the gems because they didn't know what they were. It's all coming together.
And he goes to meet the Valinor with fucking asshole dust, diamond dust on his shoes. It's oh man.
I should have worn my good leathers.
Yeah. My golden shoes are getting tarnished by diamond dust.
I did have the one question at this point, because they mentioned that the Havens is like the last place that the elves have withdrawn to, but did we ever mention when Brithambar and Eglarest are lost? Because I know they were like under siege in the 4th battle, I believe, or it might have been the 3rd battle, but that leaguer was lifted later. So do we think they just withdrew at one point, or they were ever... Because Morgoth never sent his forces like that far south.
I think those were changed with the changing of the worlds.
Yeah, but I felt like they were still there like during Turin's time and everything. And now, I mean, as of now, they're still there. The battle hasn't happened, but they're empty, right?
Oh, I don't know that.
It's just one little thing that kind of bothered me. All right.
I'm just kind of sad that Mydros, who used to be the righteous one of Fairness Sons, actually does the prick thing and kidnaps Elrond and Elros.
He treats them according to their station.
Yeah. No, of
How
course.
many people did he kill?
Like they instigate the 3rd kinslaying, right? So that's just probably what that's probably at this point regular. It's just normal, I guess. Like,
And they know it's wrong.
We're going to kill each other. Yeah.
They know it's wrong and it's evil, and they're like, God, we got to do this. It's like, yeah, we do. We swore.
Yeah, it's like
And does that make it worse or better that he knows it's wrong? I don't know.
I guess it makes it worse because he does it. He knows it's wrong, but he still does it. If he didn't know it was wrong, and did it, he could still say, yeah, but I wasn't aware that this was such a big deal. It's like, we can kill men or orcs and stuff, and no one bats an eye, but we can't kill each other. And yeah, but since he knows that this is more heinous, then he's probably much more guilty. It's much worse overall, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, we do have him meeting to the Valar. Of course, it's another festival, but it's a good festival. They're not going to be invaded. He's just showing
right.
up. But he asks. There's the line here where, "Pardon," he asks, "for the Noldor, and pity for their great sorrows, and mercy upon men and elves, and succor in their need." And his prayer was granted. So the Valar finally decide they're going to do something, and we get the line about, he sends, Aeon Way goes back to the beach and sends the other 3 mariners in a crappier, smaller boat back to Middle-earth, but they do get back there. And they start the great muster of the Valar, I guess. But we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, yeah, that quote, and then all of a sudden they're half-elven again. So they're given a choice in which race they belong to. Elwing chooses elf, and Earendil does the same, since he didn't want to be parted from his boo. His 3 red shirts are just sent back over the sea to Middle-earth. Vingalot was then hollowed and then put through the door of night into the heavens with the Silmaril on his brow. And seriously, this next part gives me chills. All the elves in Middle-earth see this new star, and they are given hope, and they name it Gil Estel, the star of high hope. And Morgoth is like, oh shit, Gil Estel, the star, oh fuck.
You can read it twice, we know you really like it.
The armies of the west and the armies of the north meet upon Angulfil, and the whole north is aflame with war, and the lands of Middle-earth were changed. The 3 houses of the Edain marched with the elves, which will totally help them out later. Some of the men of the east, possibly the same that betrayed Maedhros in the battle of Number Tears, fought on the side of Morgoth, and the elves would never forget it. Anyway, the Battle of the Air sounds awesome, with Throndir leading his eagles against the flying dragons.
Finally.
And Earendil even comes down and destroys Calagon the Black, the biggest and baddest of the dragons, which I'm not sure how you fight dragons from a flying ship, but whatever.
Don't worry about the little things, Matt.
Prick them in the eyes or something, and then with your small sword or whatever.
I'm sure he's got some kind of laser thing going on.
He just sang at his he just sang at him. He's like, "Die, dragon!" Because he's magic now.
It's a flight of
Pew
dragons.
pew pew pew. Oh man, you got me.
Yeah, this is the World War II sort of air battle, I guess. But yeah, Tolkien hates allegories, so forget I said that.
All right, so let's pause here, and then we'll discuss like the little skirmish afterwards. But Yeah, this has some of the most. I mean, these last 3 pages are really some of the most beautiful writing in the whole book, in my opinion. But the one of my favorite parts is just talking about how they marched when they came over, and that even the Teleri lent their ships, but they refused to set foot on Middle Earth and help the people who killed them in the old days. But I just want to read the last little.
Of the march of the host of the Valar to the north of Middle-earth, little is said in any tale, for among them went none of those elves who had dwelt and suffered in the hitherlands, and who made the histories of those days that still are known. And tidings of these things they only learned long afterwards from their kinsfolk in Ammon. But at the last the might of Valinor came up out of the west, and the challenge of the trumpets of Eonwe filled the sky, and Beleriand was ablaze with the glory of their arms. For the host of the Valar were arrayed in forms young and fair and terrible, and the mountains rang beneath their feet.
Yeah, but at the same time,
Pretty badass.
it sounds like there are elves and men fighting too. I'm having trouble picturing this, like a battle of the gods, and there's men with them, and I don't know, it doesn't compute, kind of.
I like to think like the guys in the ground, like the men and the elves are fighting the orcs, and then you got the Valar and and the Maiar, they're fighting the Balrogs, and then you got Earendil and the flying Valar. I'm sure a couple of them have wings. Are fighting the dragons.
Yeah, but
And then the gods are just fighting their god fights.
And Morgoth does not fight because he never fights.
Right. Well,
No,
the next paragraph.
he's cowering.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have the line about how once he unleashes the dragons, like the forces were actually thrown back, and there was a moment there where it was in the balance. But
I'd love to see that in the movie somehow, like 15 dragons or something on screen.
Can you imagine?
This paragraph is like 3 movies.
Yeah. This whole exactly. I just want to read the next paragraph too. I'm just going to read the whole thing out loud, but
Okay.
Do it.
The meeting of the hosts of the west and of the north is named the Great Battle and the War of Wrath. There was marshalled the whole power of the throne of Morgoth, and it had become great beyond count, so that Anfauglith could not contain it, and all the north was aflame with war.
I've literally underlined everything on this page. I don't want to read the whole thing, but a couple of good lines are...
Then, seeing that his hosts were overthrown and his power dispersed, Morgoth quailed, and he dared not come forth himself. But he loosed upon his foes the last desperate assault that he had prepared, and out of the pits of Angband there issued the winged dragons that had not before been seen. And so sudden and ruinous was the onset of that dreadful fleet that the hosts of the Valar were driven back, for the coming of the dragons was with great thunder and lightning and a tempest of fire. But Earendil came, shining with white flame, and about Vingilot were gathered all the great birds of heaven, and Thorondor was their captain, and there was battle in the air all the day and through a dark night of doubt. Before the rising of the sun, Earendil slew Ancalagan the Black, the mightiest of the dragon host, and cast him from the sky, and he fell upon the towers of Thangorodrim, and they were broken in his ruin.
Yay, the eagles are coming.
It does seem kind of, I mean, it's pretty awesome, but it's like the previous chapter, but anticlimactic. It's like we build up to all this thing, and then there was a great war.
Yeah, well, he says, among them went none of the elves who had dwelt and suffered the hitherland, so they didn't write the histories,
Which is even worse if you think about it. It's like, the guys who managed to defeat the big bad guy are not people you remember. It's like, the people who actually, managed to do something in the end weren't remembered in any way. It's that's kind of maybe an insult to both the elves who live in Middle Earth, because essentially it's saying, you suffered for nothing and you needed, at some point you needed someone to help you out. And the other ones are just like, you're not, you are nameless. You're the cavalry. That's good enough for you. But no specifics, please. That's.
But it fits with the tone of a lot of Tolkien's. I mean, even the Battle of Pelennor Fields, a couple of parts you get like down on the ground, but it's a lot of one step removed. You're not there with the blood and the guts and the men shitting themselves. It's all like Theoden and Eowyn and having their little fight and the waves of the fighting going back and forth. But it's always a little removed from the reality, which I don't mind. It's beautifully written, but it would be nice to get some more details.
It was different than what I expected, because, like I said, this is my first read through, and this has been mentioned about the great, basically, end of the First Age that would change the face of the world, and I thought it was just sort of like, almost like, what's the main god?
Manwë?
Yeah, Manwë coming down and like just saying, like, just
Slapping
wiping the whole thing. Yeah, just like wiping it all out, saying boom, start over. I didn't expect it to actually be armies fighting with mortals and gods together.
Well, the way the world was changed originally, like in the prehistory, was every time Morgoth had to fight, like the geography was changed because of the wrath and the fighting was so violent, with the mountains being thrown up and the valleys being delved. So I can imagine how here it's literally from the fighting of the gods meeting that causes the earth to shake.
And apparently Calagon, basically when he dies, breaks Thangorojim, which is like that's essentially what happens every time. Apparently, when they fight Morgoth, it's like you have these big, these big areas that are basically destroyed, and so it's like you have to start all over again.
And we do get him the end of Morgoth here, where
there Morgoth stood at last at bay, and yet unvaliant. He fled into the deepest of his mines and sued for peace and pardon. But his feet were hewn from under him, and he was hurled upon his face. Then he was bound with the chain and Gainor, which he had worn aforetime, and his iron crown they beat into a collar for his neck, and his head was bowed upon his knees. And the 2 Silmarils which remained to Morgoth were taken from his crown, and they shone unsullied beneath the sky, and Eonwe took them and guarded them.
So he's still out there, just chained up.
At this point, he's still chained up, yeah.
Well, I mean, even to the Third Age.
Well, they throw him through the next paragraph where they basically, he's not going to sue for peace. He's not going to get any parole, and they basically chain him and throw him through the doors of night. But a guard is placed on it, so he, there is the rumor that he could return.
It's like Loki, essentially, in Norse mythology. It's like he's bound to that rock to basically have poison drip on his face until the Ragnarok or something, and then he sort of breaks free of his chains and frees the giant wolf Fenrir and that sort of thing. It's like, I guess this is where we would be if this were Norse mythology. He would be sort of like, you're punished and bound to that, to that one place where you can't escape, and we know that essentially at some point he might probably escape, because there's something that was never actually published. I guess it's the final conflict where Morgoth breaks free of his chains and that sort of thing.
Right, I was going to bring that up, that he was, I guess, towards the end of his life thinking of writing The Shadow. Was it called The Return of the Shadow or something like that? Where he was going to come back and cause more trouble.
And, really? You would have Sauron come back as well and that sort of thing, and everything would probably be wrapped up in a nice bow at some point.
That's why I do feel so bad, because like Tolkien, his whole family lived to be like 100 years old, and he got this like stomach cramp one day when he was 80 whatever and just died. He didn't expect. I mean, he lived a long life, but he was expected to live longer, and of course it would have been nice for him personally, but we had so many more stories.
Yeah. Well, who's gonna fight Morgoth and Sauron and all that when they come back?
Well, I think Earendil was gonna come back because he was the guard that was, and he's his only, not equal, but at least he's got the star power, right?
Yeah, literal star power.
So we get the final battle. The Earth is changed, and we have this kind of coda where Morgoth is defeated, but the Sons of Feanor are not done yet.
Yeah, which is like these are sort of third-rate opponents, I guess, compared to Morgoth, right? Or you would think so, and they still managed to get the Silmaril, right? So.
Yeah, let's do. Matt, you want to do the last section, and then we can actually do. I wanted to do the dialogue of Maglor and Maedhro. So after you finish that, we can I'll be one and you can be one, and we'll have a little dialogue.
All right. Anyway, so they crush Morgoth like a grape, and only a few of his servants are able to escape and hide, like the Balrog under Moria and Smog, and a handful of orcs probably. They tie Morgoth off, they take off his crown and beat it into a collar and throw him into the void, and apparently you can keep watch on the void, so that's what they do.
When you stare into the void stares back. We know that.
Apparently. Eonwe summoned the Elves of Beleriand to leave Middle-earth, but Mahedros and Maglar are dicks and would not answer his summons because Iwande held the Silmarils, and their oath was still a thing that they had. They sent a message to Iwande, but Iwande claimed that their ruthless deeds had nullified their claim, and the Silmarils must go into the west.
And just so you know, at this point, Eonwe has become a Nigerian prince named Eondwe, and
Yeah,
just
whatever.
Kidding. I know, it's all right. Yeah, so they are dicks one last time, but before they have their ultimate end, they basically have this dialogue where they're like discussing, can we please get out of the oath somehow? And for this role, actually, Shane, do you want to do that? You haven't done a recap. Do you want to take one of the roles?
Sure. Which one's better?
Probably Mydros, because he kind of wants out of it, but I'll be Maglor.
Okay.
So I'm Maglor, the little more dicky son. I can sing really well. That's kind of what I got going for me. And Shane is Mydros, the oldest of the sons of Feanor. So the oath says that we may not bide our time, and it may be that in Valinor all shall be forgiven and
no
forgotten.
Accent?
They don't have accents. All right, fine.
I don't sign up for that.
I don't know if they're British.
Eh?
All right, I don't go too posh with this, but the oath says that we may not bide our time, and it may be that in Valinor all shall be forgiven and forgot, and we shall come into our own in peace.
Who can tell to what dreadful doom we shall come, if we disobey the powers in their own land, or purpose ever to bring war again into their holy realm?
If Manwë and Vardar themselves deny the fulfilment of an oath to which we named them in witness, is it not made void?
But how shall our voices reach to Iluvatar beyond the circles of the world? And by Iluvatar we swore to our madness, and called the everlasting darkness upon us. If we kept not our word, who shall release us?
If none can release us, then indeed the everlasting darkness shall be our lot, whether we keep our oath or break it. But less evil shall we do in the breaking. And then we're done, I think.
Yeah.
There's just a summary for the rest of it.
Nice.
So they basically kind of agreed,
Basically,
like,
posh
let's
English
just...
gentlemen.
What's that?
Essentially, posh English gentlemen.
Yeah. I assume they're posh. They're like the upper class of the upper crust, right?
Yeah.
Was I loud enough? I noticed I got lower
That
when I was
good.
trying to be
Well,
cultured.
No, you sounded good.
So yeah, so they decide it's basically no one can release them of their oath except for the fulfillment or their deaths. So they're gonna try for it, and they break into the camp. Do they kill anyone? I hope they don't kill. I think they probably kill a couple more elves. Yeah. So it's like the third and a half kinslaying, and they steal away with the treasures. So Matt, do you want to just read the last little recap bit there?
Ah, sure. Maglar, being weird and sad, wishing to answer Ziwanwe's summons and stand judgment before the Valar. But he was persuaded by Maedros. Disguised, they crept into Eonwe's camps and that slew the guards and stood alone against all of the camp, prepared to die for their treasure. But Eonwe let them escape, and each took a Silmaril.
You can just finish the whole thing.
Okay, you guys don't want to do a British accent?
Is there more to talk about in there?
Mahedros' Silmaril burned his hand with unbearable pain, and he knew that his deeds had indeed voided his right to his father's heirloom. He cast himself and his Silmaril into the fiery chasm, like you do. Maglor also could not bear the pain of his Silmaril, but he cast his into the depths of the sea, and he wandered ever after upon the shores of Middle-earth, singing in sorrow. So now the Silmarils are in the earth, sea, and the sky. So the Elves of Beleriand were pardoned by the Valar and the Teleri, whom they had long ago, and the curse of Mandos was laid to rest. The newcomers dwelt upon the island of Tol Eressëa. Some of the elves remained in Middle-earth, though Círdan, Galadriel, and Celeborn, Gil-galad, and Elrond with him, who had chosen to be counted among the elves. His brother Elros chose to be counted among men.
Why would they stay?
They have more yet to do. Well, we know Galadriel wanted to carve out her own kingdom, so she was pretty driven, right?
Yeah,
So she was selfish.
Got the thing going.
Also, they beat the big guy, and they feel like now they can finally have some time to enjoy themselves.
Now they get to party for another millennia or two.
Yeah.
Which one does?
I mean, it's pretty. I guess if you're in Lothlorien, times are pretty neat, at least at this point. Did we also mention? I mean, that I know that this is probably only comes up in one of the later chapters, but apparently they also talk to Sauron or something. The Valar do, or the Eonwe does. And Sauron refuses to bend to the Valar, and so he flees, right? So we still have to keep that in mind.
He's cool, but that's in the Calbeth.
Yeah. I'm just throwing that out there because we said there was some of Morgoth's servants that were still out there, so it's like
Yeah, well, they talked about the Balrog's run, and we know that one makes its way to have his date with Gandalf at some point in the far future.
I wonder if there were other ones that because
sure
what I understood, there were other Balrogs who
it's a big world
and stuff, and then this was the only one that just got woken up, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The
dwarves delved too deeply in their greed.
Yeah, I mean, greed is everything in this story. I guess it's also like now they're sort of, I mean, Midras and Magda are sort of punished for their oath essentially, because that's what drove everything.
And also, you get the forgiveness of the Teleri, which it's kind of like one sentence here, but that's also a pretty big deal because it really wasn't so much them leaving Valinor that started. Like, the thing that really pushed them on their path was once they had the kinslaying at Aquilonde. Like, there was really no turning back at that point, and this forgiveness is a big theme, and that's what laid the curse to rest. That was the last thing that had to be done when the Teleri forgave their ancient grief. So I thought that was worth mentioning.
Yeah, and just the fact that they were like, okay, we'll bring you over the sea instead of like actually stepping on Middle Earth. I feel like that's
we'll help you. We're doing this for the gods, not for you.
Right.
It's like the coalition.
Yes.
Here ends the Silmarillion. If it has passed from the high and the beautiful to darkness and ruin, that was of old the fate of Arda marred, and if any change shall come and the marring be amended, Manwë and Varda may know. But they have not revealed it, and it is not declared in the dunes of Mandos.
So that's the end of the first age, officially?
That's the end of the first age.
I feel like the destruction of Beleriand would probably feel like a bigger deal if we sort of focused on that more, I guess. It's really strange that there's a whole part of that continent that just got thrown into the ocean or something.
Yeah, well, basically the Blue Ridge Mountains, which used to be the far east of Beleriand, become the far west of Middle Earth. That's and the Shire is like to the east of that. So that's it's a huge. Wow. It's like 500 leagues or something like that. And but like I said, it didn't. It must have happened gradually or like during the fighting, because there was still time for the elves to gather and for Eonwe to be like, all right, you guys got to leave now. You can either come to Valinor, closing time, and you can't stay here. So you got to go one way or the other.
So all these, I mean, there are probably lots of men and elves that probably died just from these landmasses being rearranged.
Yeah.
It's like, that doesn't really get mentioned, I guess.
And Tol Morwen, which we should mention, we've said before, but the area where Morwen died in the valley, eventually gets like raised up, and it's one of the only, land masses that survive the first age in Beleriand. Although apparently Dorthonion, like it's referenced in one of the later middle histories of Middle Earth, that Dorthonion is this huge raised island now, which I think would have been like, hey, there's a giant plateau island hanging out just off the coast, but that might not have been canon.
Treebird mentions that he was walking in Dorthonion when the
Earth was young.
So yeah, he knows it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's sort of that's still to me. leaves open the question of Maglo threw the Silmaril into the sea, but yeah, it's probably still somewhere out there. People
You can
still
imagine.
find things. It'd
You would
just be
imagine you could still see it. It's so bright.
The brightest thing ever.
yeah,
That's 5 feet below the water.
yeah. So
Well, no,
whenever-
they say that. Didn't they say that Olmo found it and took it into the deeps or something like that?
why wouldn't
No.
you just bring it to the Valar? Like, I don't know.
It's not poetic.
Of course.
No, it's just until the earth is broken. It's like a Ragnarok kind of thing.
Although I feel like Maedhros dying like in a fire and stuff like that doesn't really suit him though.
It's kind of weird that Maglor's the one that gets to survive, where if anyone, I thought it would have been
Maedhros.
Maedhros that survived.
Yeah, he was. I mean, until the latter part, he was probably the one with more integrity. But yeah, that's also the beauty of having at least these characters not be that detailed, like in the description of their personalities, because then you can sort of ponder, okay, I wouldn't have expected that from this guy, as from what I knew, right? But then you sort of can try to guess why it is that Maglo wasn't the one to commit suicide, but Maedhros was the one to do it. But
All
it's
because
also
their dad was a dick.
yeah.
Fair enough.
Well, at least Maedhros got a measure of peace in the end because he gets to die, but Maglor's the one that's forced. It says like he's forced to wander until the breaking of the world, but that happened like a week later, so it wasn't that long, right?
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, you get to wander around for a week and think of what you've done.
Well, this is after that, isn't it?
Oh, sorry.
This is after the big battle.
Yeah, but that's why I don't think it all broke it, because like they had time, so it was probably a gradual process,
Yeah.
earthquakes and all that.
I mean, and that's why they want the Silmarils to be in the earth, in the sea, and in the air.
Yeah, one for each.
Although I feel it's like really very humiliating fate for Morgoth to be cast into chains and be thrown into the void. Although if we threw
Your
Donald
team
Trump,
Morgoth?
no, if we threw Morgoth, if I'm just saying, like, being in the void for all eternity is like that must be really horrible to experience. I'm just
Well,
saying.
for all we know, the first time he got chained was longer than that point that he was chained then
Okay.
till the end of the Third Age.
Oh no, that might be
Isn't that like ages untold or something?
Yeah, that was in at the very beginning,
Yeah.
before the Earth had a real shape or something.
But it's weird that they say in the beginning that when Iluvatar created the world and the being the Ainur passed into it, that once they passed into it they could like never return to the void or wherever they came from. But it seems like Morgoth kind of was forced to go back there unless that's like a different plane of existence from the other place they came from. But they talk about the outer darkness and the void, and that's where they were all hanging out, I assume, before they came down into Arda.
Yeah, I'm just imagining now Donald Trump being cast into the void.
If only.
Oh well.
All right, I think that wraps it up.
Yeah.
Hopefully
I mean,
we'll
that's
wrap the whole thing up soon, but thank you for joining us, and we will catch you next time on the Silmarillion cast.
Thank
Bye.
you, guys.
Thanks.
Die, dragon.
Turin and Nienor. Wow, this does not make sense. Morgoth. Okay, Brett made fun of me last week for not putting a comma in, and there probably could have been a comma after Nienor. All right.
Yep. Edit that one out.
Yeah.
Die, dragon.
There he also finds his wife Morwen, who is near death. There he finds his wife Morwen leaning.
Have you been drinking?
I have been drinking. It's only 2 rum and cokes, but it was 3 hours ago. I figured I was fine. All right.
Die, dragon.
No, but he dies with like the light of the trees that.
Oh, he doesn't say that. That's just I was gonna. That's not. He doesn't say that. That's like the description.
Oh, okay.
But so the lust
Cut that out.
That's all right.
Cut that out.
Die, dragon.
Shit, cock, ass. Cut it out.
Yep, I cut that out. Snip, snip.
Oh,
It's
okay.
gone.
Die, dragon.
We're just talking about how hot Luth Baron. I'm talking about how hot Baron is. How hot
Luth Baron?
is.
Yeah.
I didn't see any pictures. Die, dragon.
I basically think he's like Jeb Bush, hoping that like Donald Trump just like implodes himself. Just like.
Wait, so who's Trump in this? Trump is Thingol? No, Trump is Morgoth?
Who is
They're all
Trump?
Morgoth as far as I'm concerned. So
Way to make it political. Way to make it political, guys.
I think Trump, as he is now, is still Morgoth, and probably Jeb is probably Sauron. Something. I don't know.
You guys are gonna love it. You're gonna have so much orcs. You're gonna be so happy. You can't believe how many orcs you're gonna have. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Yeah, I can see him.
And another Greg impression.
Yeah, that's.
I didn't know I did that many impressions.
I'm gonna make the awesomest dragon ever. It's like I'm the best at dragons. And Sauron is just going like I'm just waiting. I'm trying to be taller than. Yeah.
Where can Morgoth put up a wall? I'm gonna put up a wall between us and Valinor so they can't get in. It'll be fine.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing.
Trump is Bran the Builder.
I'm sure most of the Eldar are rapists, but some of them are good people. Sorry, all right.
Yeah.
Same with the Wildings, right?
Yeah.
Boom, Shepherds of the Forest.